So my name is Chukwuka John. Welcome to Escape Velocity. So this is a podcast that is dedicated to your financial independence. We are diligent in bringing people to this podcast that are walking the walk and people that are talking the talk. Um, so Casey, I have known him since my days in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We actually attended. I was going to school to become a realtor. I was going
Yes,
to school to become a realtor. I think Casey was taking some additional classes, so he would become a broker. I think those were the scenarios and circumstances. And then we've kept in contact. We've kept in touch since then. He knew I was really passionate about real estate in general. And then Casey was still in
right.
single family home as of that time. Then all of a sudden he moved into commercial. Then around the same time I developed passion for commercial real estate. So it just happened, and he's been able to mentor me, guide me, show me the way when it comes to commercial real estate. So Casey, I'm really happy that you are here. Thank you for joining us in this podcast. Would you mind going ahead and introduce yourself to our audience so we will have this conversation going?
I'm Casey Litsey, and I've been in real estate since 2013. I've done residential, I've done commercial, and currently I'm still in commercial. I made the switch in 2016, and that's where I basically just sell multifamily apartments all over the Midwest. In 2018, that's whenever I started stepping more into ministry. And so after that, I just kind of ran with it and realized that was more my calling than any real estate or anything, any type of job or title. That was it. And so that's kind of, where things are now. I remember though, whenever, you were taking your classes and I was doing my continuing education, how we were talking about real estate and doing things.
Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing to me the plans that God has had on your life and been able to take you from where you were
Mm-hmm.
into where you are now. A lot of the viewers don't know how far you have came.
Yeah.
They see all the stuff that you have now and they see where you are now, but they don't know what it took for you to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm thankful to have the friendship and brothership that we have, to be able to push each other, help each other in ways that a lot of people don't get that type of, blessing to be able to do that. And so I'm thankful for it.
That's great. Thank you, Casey. I appreciate you coming in here. I think you saw my post on Facebook and you were like, "Hey, you are now in commercial. Hey, let's talk."
Yeah.
Yeah, that conversation we have kept in contact since then, and I truly treasure your friendship. But Casey, tell me, how did you get started? With single family home. How did you get started with real estate?
So whenever I graduated high school, the night of graduation, I thought that, I had other plans to go play basketball at college and do things. And it didn't end up working out. And so I had to fall back on something. And so as I went to sleep that night after graduation, pondering and thinking, what am I going to do? Obviously this isn't the plan of what I thought I was going to be doing. And it just so happened that I woke up in the middle of the night and it came to me where God told me, go sell real estate. And so that's exactly what I did the next day. Next day, I got in the car. I drove to the office of the nearest real estate office to me. I walked in, kid you not, I was still in like a t-shirt,
Mm.
shorts, nothing professional. And they looked at me and said, "You're too young. You need to go back to school. This business isn't, cut out for you.
How old were you
You're
then?
better off." Oh gosh, I was right at 18.
18. Wow.
Right at 18. Yes.
You didn't
So
you didn't go to university. You just from 18 you jumped
no,
into real estate. Wow. Okay.
I jumped straight into real estate. And
Mm.
so at that time, I'm sitting at the brokerage and this lady is asking me like, "Are you serious? You look like you just, are still in high school." And I said, "Well, I just graduated last night." And she couldn't take me serious. She said, "What happens if one of the managers here walks out and sees you like this?" I said, "I have no idea." I said, "All I'm trying to do is figure out how do I get in this business." And she said, well, you got to go to school for it. And she kind of gave me the runaround. And I said, well, is there like an application or something I could fill out to apply for it? Because, I was so new to it, I had no idea how to get started. And so as I'm just about to leave, one of the branch managers walks in and she sees me. And she asked me to come back to her office and we start talking. And I tell her I want to sell real estate. And she just kind of shocked at the age I was because, in 2013, I mean, it was unheard of for a lot of young people to be in this business. It was mostly your more mature age. And so whenever she called me back there, we started talking about how I wanted to be in this business, and she was telling me that I need to, go to school, to the real estate school and do my hours and all this stuff. And so they signed me up for it. And I kid you not, all the questions on there, none of that was in actual high school. I learned it was just like, it was so new to me. It was a different language.
Hmm.
And so whenever I tried to take these tests, here I never bought a home, never rented a home, never done anything with any type of real estate. So it was almost like I literally had to relearn a language to where I could understand.
Wow.
It's a lot different when you know somebody in the business because you can lean on them for the answers.
Hmm.
But where I came from, I didn't have anybody to lean on for the answers. And so I was basically learning and teaching myself about this language. It took me 7 times to get my license. I failed that test 7 times.
Are you kidding me? I didn't know that.
No, yeah, I'm not an excellent test taker.
Ah.
And plus, you got to realize I knew nothing about a mortgage. I knew nothing about a loan. I mean, I was so young and new. But one thing about me that separated me from a lot of others is that I knew how to hustle.
Hmm.
So while I was taking my test, while I was trying to get my license, I was out trying to drum up business,
Hmm.
telling everybody I got my real estate license. If they want to buy property, come call me.
Hmm.
And so, well, word got around, and my parents, they have a church, and so a lot of their congregations, I was always trying to pitch to them after church. Here they had no idea I haven't sold one house or done anything.
Hmm.
But whenever my license came in, I sold my first house already.
Hmm.
Then after that, I've sold this woman a house, and then I turned around and sold her a building on top of it.
Wow.
And that was literally my first day of having my license in hand.
Wow.
And so,
That's amazing. But
yeah,
I like your story is quite interesting. What gave you the conviction that you're gonna make it in real estate? I mean, there is a saying that it's either you know a realtor or you know
right,
somebody that knows a
right.
realtor. Even your churches, they are filled with realtors,
Yes.
right? So what gave you
Oh,
the
yeah.
conviction that, hey, you don't have like a university degree, that you are going to
Uh-huh.
make it in this industry that you've not tested out?
When God tells you something, that's when you just take it and stand on it.
Hmm.
And you work where you can and you allow him to work. That's why it says in Proverbs, 16:3, it states, commit your actions to the Lord and your plans will succeed.
Hmm.
In other words, all you have to do is basically commit your plans to him and let him do the rest.
Hmm.
See, we have these desires in our heart a lot of times, and they're not the desires of what God wants us to have.
Hmm.
And so we run in this race and this circle and chase our tail because we're not in God's will of what he wants us to do.
Hmm.
But whenever you're in the will of what he wants you to do, that's where you'll succeed in the areas of what you're thriving in.
Hmm.
It's because it's in his will for us to succeed, but it has to be what he wants us to do.
Hmm.
A lot of times we have our own desires, but when we put our desires to the side and say, okay, God, I'm going to allow you to do what you want to do in my life, that's when we find the happiness. That's
Hmm.
when we find the joy.
Hmm.
And that's when we find that we're passionate about something that we're in. Because a lot of times we'll get into something, we'll be passionate about it for a little bit, and
Hmm.
then we'll stop.
Right. Right.
Or we'll get into it because we make a lot of money.
Hmm.
But the problem is you can make a lot of money, and if the passion isn't there, your money is only going to stay at a certain level
Right.
because your passion's not there to be motivated to continue to do it. That's why,
Hmm.
whenever I was in real estate, I was passionate about it. I was
Hmm.
always passionate about selling deals and doing things. And that's why God would open so many doors for me to be able to
Mm.
succeed in it, because there's more to it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just about selling homes. It's not just about selling buildings or doing big transactions or owning a lot of real estate, but it's about bettering the kingdom. And if you change your mindset to always wanting to better the kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
put yourself second, everything you do will succeed. I'm not saying there won't be hardship.
Right.
I'm not saying there won't be trials, but you will.
I like how you are bringing in the faith part and then the hustle part, right? You are kind
Yes,
of having a balance between your passion and then what you have the conviction in your heart, which is your faith that God is leading you in this particular direction. Hey, bro,
right.
from $0 to 100 million plus in transactions in real estate. Tell us, what has the journey been for you?
Man, has it been a journey. I remember when I first stepped into commercial in, 2016, um, it was like, oh my gosh, it was such a journey. It was such a learning curve, because you learn everything about residential and then you want to do something new and bigger,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't realize the learning that takes in for it to be able to do that. And so I remember, it took me about a year to actually start getting transactions
Yeah.
on a consistent, because it takes so much time to be able to do that. And that's where the drive comes in. Because I was doing residential, but it was like I got burnt out on it. And when I got burnt out, I realized, God was showing me that He didn't want me in residential all this time. He wanted to move me into commercial because there's bigger and better things to come.
Mm-hmm.
We always want to bust through the ceiling. And when we do bust through that ceiling, a lot of times it's an uncomfortable feeling.
Mm.
And so whenever I had the position of being in residential and I was doing it, I realized that a lot of people would buy off emotions and that they weren't buying off, knowledge and understanding financials.
Mm-hmm.
They would just buy a home because they loved it, not because it was going to benefit them financially, but they just did it out of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And when I would try to correct them and say, hey, I don't think this is a good area to buy this in, the market's going to decrease or it's going to stay the same. Why don't we go look somewhere else? Well, they'd find it offensive because they wanted me to side with them about that home.
Mm-hmm.
And so I realized that this isn't in me to be able to have emotions in business. I'm more about where it's straight to the point, straight to the deal. If it makes sense, it's great. If it doesn't, let's not buy it. And so when I made the transition to commercial, the drive and the work effort that I had to put in was substantially more
Mm.
because I was busting through a new ceiling.
Yeah.
So basically, my hours were like 8 to 9 o'clock at night of just cold calling and trying to get business.
Mm.
I remember this mentor of mine. It was my first day starting with him, and he said, "I got all these numbers I want you to call," and he handed me a stack of papers about this thick,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, "I want you to call them and see if you can get some business out of it." Well, a lot of times people will hand you stuff and you don't really assume that it's going to get done. They'll work on it for a little bit, they'll quit.
Mm-hmm.
When their breakthrough is just right there,
Yeah.
when that promise is just right around the corner. And so basically what I did is I took all that list and I called and called and called. And I'll never forget my first deal. This gentleman, this older retired gentleman, picked up a phone and I was asking him about selling a deal over in Arkansas. It was like a 72 unit, it wasn't nothing major. He said, "No, I don't want to sell it." He said, "But I'll sell some stuff in Muskogee. What do you think about that?" And I said, "Sure, I'll sell it. Just tell me what you have and I'll underwrite it and see if it makes sense." Okay. Well, it's 762 units. And that right there is where I really had to learn about the business whenever you said that. Because here I was thinking,
762 units.
yes,
Wow. And you
762
and you were
units.
shooting for like 72 units?
I was only shooting for 70.
Oh,
But that
70.
was the thing though,
Hmm.
you know, I remember, man, whenever I first started commercial, I barely had any money. It was
Hmm.
like I was just living paycheck to paycheck. And so I was desperate to get something done. And I was just trusting in God to get me through it. Like I said, I called, it was only 70 units. And then all of a sudden, it turned into 762 units.
Wow.
And so I sold that within 3 days. And then after
Really?
that, yes,
Did you
I
had a
put it on the
buyer?
market.
You had a buyer already, or what is the
Already
mechanics like?
had, we already had somebody lined up for it.
Wow.
So they purchased it. We closed it 30 days, done, and then moved on to the next deal. But it was all a journey. I
Hmm.
mean, it was all a journey. And it took the discipline of being consistent and creating a compounding effect.
Hmm.
See, a lot of times we don't have that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I really want to delve deep a little bit into your transition from single family to multifamily.
Uh-huh.
So I do have some of my friends, they are hearing about real estate investments, right? And some of them still just want to start from the single family space. But some of these individuals are really busy, um, you know, trying to get into real estate. Let's just invest in
Right.
real estate. But there are also opportunities in multifamily real estate where people can manage your properties and
Mm-hmm.
help you overlook the property. So what are your striking differences? What was the that pulling factor that helped you to understand that multifamily is the way to be? As you were transitioning from single family.
Well, multifamily, you have, multiple units under one roof.
Mm-hmm.
So that takes down your liability a lot more than just having individual homes.
Right.
And then also, you got to think about maintenance too.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to maintain one property under one roof than it is to have scattered homes all around.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So that is the way that you kind of look at it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because the fact of, if I have 20 homes and they're all scattered out, that's going to take me more time to manage and keep track of those homes.
Mm-hmm.
Rather, if I had 20 units under one roof, that is going to allow me to be able to have someone manage it a lot more efficiently than 20 homes. Say if you have, a plumbing line break or anything like that in one of the homes,
Mm-hmm.
well, you're going to have to go drive clear across town to go to that one. We'll say maybe, you know, someone has a leak on the other home. Well, if it's not next door to each other, you have to drive clear across town back to that one.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have all the units under one roof, then whenever you go check on one thing and say something else breaks, there's the capability to be right there with it
Mm.
instead of having to drive back and forth. Because time is one thing that we can't get back.
Right.
And it's so important. We sacrifice so much time that we cannot get back.
Mm.
And so if we move more efficiently, we will always have more time to do other things.
Mm. That's great. That's great. Yeah. I'm an investor in multifamily space too. Because I know I don't have all the time to manage like several properties, right?
Right.
With a very tight margin in the single family space. So tell me, how did you learn to underwrite real estate? You mentioned something that I wanted to bring into this conversation, the gift of a person, right? So usually God
Yes.
will always send us people to help to guide us, direct us in the path to go. And I know when I met you in the real estate school, you mentioned that you met someone that kind of helped you with that transition, taught you about real estate underwriting. How did you
Yes.
meet the person, and how was the whole learning curve, learning how to underwrite real estate?
It was honestly just being at the right place at the right time.
Mm.
That's all it was. God always says that He'll open doors for us that no man can shut.
Mm.
And so I've just kept being faithful in what I could do, and I allowed God to do what He could do.
Mm.
And so when that took place, I just so happened to run into, one of the presidents of the company that kind of took me under his wing. And all it was is I was walking in the hall. I had no idea who the guy was,
Mm.
but come to find out, he was the president of the company.
Mm.
And he was saying, "Hey, I heard you were, starting to do a little bit of commercial. I know you're still in residential, and I heard you're doing a little commercial. I'm thinking about selling some apartments. What do you think I can get for those?" And that right there is where the whole conversation started. I
Mm.
had no idea who this guy was. I had no idea that he owned all the firms across the nation.
Oh wow.
It was just it was just divine appointment,
Mm.
you know. I was walking to someone's office and he was leaving out of that building to go to the one of the other offices.
Did you know him
And
before?
so I had no idea who he was, honestly.
Mm.
And I just was walking down the stairs. Instead of taking the elevator, I took the stairs. And as I was taking the stairs, I just so happened to cross with him. And he already knew who I was, I guess because one of the branch managers may have mentioned who I was or something, how I was doing a little bit of apartments, whenever he was giving a marketing update.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that happened, I still talk to him till this day. We still have that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like a business son to him per se,
Mm.
you know,
That's
and so
amazing.
I'm thankful.
That's amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
So, in how many properties, the 100 million in transactions that you've done, how many properties is that spread across roughly?
It kind of varies.
Okay.
I would say, one complex was like 700 something units, and then I sold a couple 200 units over in Shreveport.
Mm.
I actually did some smaller ones too. I sold a 7 unit before,
Mm-hmm.
a 12 unit, a 30 unit, 32, a 43.
Mm-hmm.
They just kind of all vary. It's interesting because, in this business, you'll see people that have already been in the business a while and they own thousands of units.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll see people that are just starting that only own five,
Mm.
but they own five by themselves and not with other partners.
Okay.
So you see all sorts of walks of life. You see syndicators,
Mm.
people that raise money for the property and they purchase them together.
Right.
There's all sorts of ways that people do it. And I think that's what's so unique about real estate is that there's so many avenues that you can take in order to, you know, make a career path in real estate.
Mm.
I know people that flip homes.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to own anything. They just want to flip them.
Yeah.
So all they do is just flip houses and they love it. You know, all sorts of ways, all sorts of avenues in real estate to be financially free.
That's great. That's great. I like how you brought that in because somebody once said with real estate, just get into the game and then wait. Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of ways to make money. In real estate, which multifamily apartment investment is it's one of it. So, what has been your most challenging sell so far in your experience and resume? What has been that property that took you time, experience, and challenges to sell?
I sold one that was a senior housing facility,
Mm.
and that had to be one of the most challenging. It's so funny because there was a young man that wanted to come and work for me.
Mm.
And I told him, I was like, hey, okay, just, you can come work for me, start finding deals. I believe in you. Great guy. I told him to bring me a deal. I'll help him walk through it. I kid you not, he brought me one of the most complicated deals in my entire career.
Mm.
And it's a portfolio. So we're still trying to close the other portion of it.
Oh
We
wow.
already closed one side of it. Now we're just closing the other building. But it's a senior housing facility that is being converted into multifamily.
Wow.
So that deals with a lot of zoning changes. That deals with a lot of
Mm.
moving parts in this deal.
Yeah.
Um, and so I would say that had to be the most difficult one. I've never seen so many attorneys in one room,
Mm.
you know. And then also you have to stay quiet too being a broker so the tenants don't find out. Otherwise they will get spooked.
Yeah.
But you got to remember this is a retirement facility. So you have to basically not say anything, but then you also on the back end management has to find every person in that building a place to go.
Yeah.
And they have to do it one by one.
Mm.
It can't just be doing them all at once. It has to be one by one in order for it to work. Otherwise, you'll empty out the whole building and say if the deal didn't close, we'd be in all bad shape.
Those residents that are there living in the retirement homes, I'm assuming they have contracts, right? What
Yes.
will happen to
It's
those contracts?
Well, if someone comes in and basically makes it into apartments,
Mm-hmm.
they're basically changing the area. It's no longer senior housing anymore,
Okay.
right? So it's basically a new building. And if they're planning to renovate it, then they have to go to the tenants and tell them, hey, we're going to convert this into apartments. We're actually going to be moving everybody out. And so these are the places that we will send you for a discounted rate to be able to get you out of this building. And so they will literally move them out in order to place them somewhere else.
Mm.
And this was all new to me because I was like, man, how could they just kick out a resident like that?
Mm-hmm.
But the residents were actually pleased because they were going to a much better place because the property itself was rough.
Mm.
It was bad. There was, flooding issues there. There was pipes busting, all sorts of things. It was older, um, signs of lead-based paint, all sorts of things and issues that were not pleasing to, the older generation.
Mm-hmm.
And so for them to come in and basically state, you know, we're going to move you out, or we're going to put you in a much better home. Oh man, you could only imagine how fast they packed their bags.
Mm.
And so it was a win-win.
Yeah. That's great. So we have a lot of people in my community that they've been following what I've been teaching on real estate investment, on financial independence. Um, so how can somebody who is just like a newbie, get
Yeah.
started with apartment investing?
That's the crazy thing is over this past year, I was kind of, praying about 2024 of what to do. And because I get so many calls from everyone asking me about how do I get started? What do I do?
Hmm.
Which, it's time consuming to basically take everyone's call and help them and do everything. And you want to.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I started this past year is real estate coaching.
Okay.
So if someone is an investor, a broker, an agent, they're wanting to get better in their business, they're wanting to start in the business.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I do these coaching calls for 200 a session,
Mm.
and I will go through the deal with you. And not only that, I will give you a plan to be able to execute to where you can better your real estate career. Because it's not good if someone wants to start in the business, but they have no idea how to start,
Mm-hmm.
because we've all been there.
Yeah.
So instead of that, I'm able to be able to coach them and show them what to do. And so each session that we meet, is an hour session. We will go over whatever needs to be talked about in that session of how they're wanting to better their career, how they're wanting to start their career, how they feel like they're in a plateau. What do I need to do to get more clients? What do I need to do to be able to purchase this deal? The bank's not accepting this deal. What can we do to change this? So all these things are being able to implement so that way they can better their career in real estate.
That's great. That's great. I think we're gonna be needing your information towards the end, and gonna
Yes.
be sending it out to people in case anybody wants to take interest in that. But I will always say education is the way to go, right?
Yes, it
Educate
is.
yourself. If you have opportunity for a mentor like Casey, go for it. But make sure that you are on top of your game, because in this space you want to if you want to be a big player, right, you have to mingle with the big players in the space. But yeah, that's great. I want to ask you an interesting question. This is going back to faith and entrepreneurship. Have you ever had any conflicts between your faith and the business that you are running, and how did you deal with that conflict?
I've had plenty of those. I've had times where, places that I worked, in real estate and done deals for, that they were trying to make me choose from preaching and then also, from being a broker. And it's funny because I remember this one firm I was at whenever I was starting, they kept telling me, like, you're going to have to stop preaching. You're doing too much time on doing that and not doing enough in real estate. But no matter what, when God told me to basically put preaching first and then my real estate second, my business exploded. So I had deals come across that I didn't even have to market for. I didn't even have to call on. People, past clients were just calling me wanting to buy things, sell things. And so I was basically doing that as I was preaching. And it all started because of the fact I was willing to put God first, my business second.
I think you told me a story around that time. I met you up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. You were telling me that was it your grandfather was, trying to transition the church over to you? Was that kind of the background? Could you tell us about the
Yeah,
background? Yeah.
yeah, they're pastors and they've been pastors for a while. And so my wife and I, we sit under them as associate pastors
Okay.
and we kind of help with, growing the church, bringing new ideas and things like that. And so whenever they started having me preach more, it took more time. And so I told God, I went to him, I said, God, I'm doing well in real estate. Why would you just take me away from this? And he said, I'm not taking you away. If you put me first, I'll make you spend less time in real estate and you'll make even more money and you'll be even more happy and more prosperous. But first, you got to put me first and do what I'm having you do. I guided you all through residential. I'll guide you all through this. And that's what he did. I mean, he basically took everything that I would work on and it would just supernaturally happen.
Hmm.
I didn't have to put in a lot of effort because on the back end, see, I was preparing sermons and preaching, you know, once a month and bi-weekly and things like that. And so God saw where my heart was. So he
Yeah.
was automatically implementing my business and making it succeed.
That's
If we
amazing.
put him first,
Mm-hmm.
no
That's
matter what
amazing.
obstacle comes, you'll see, a progress.
That's
It won't
amazing.
be where you'll have to pick between the two.
Hmm.
Because if you pick God first, God's always going to open a better door for you. Even if someone tries to shut the door on you in the business just because you're serving God,
Hmm.
he'll open a better one for you. He always does. He always will.
Hmm. That's amazing. I feel very inspired right now. Thank you. Thank you so much, Casey. So, another question for you as you went through that, particular conflict of your business and your faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was kind of the tempo of your business around that time? Were you actually climbing up, or was it going down? What was the scenario around that time that you make that decision?
In switching from residential to commercial
No,
per se.
when you made the transition to kind of put God first, what was the
Oh,
trajectory of your business around that time?
it was so interesting because, you know, whenever I committed to it, it was like my business slowed down. And I think, a lot of times God looks at our heart to see if we're really serious about what we're doing.
Hmm.
And so at the time, it was going down, and I had two choices. I could worry or I could trust.
Hmm.
If I worry, then the process of what going down may go down further. But if I trust, I don't have to worry. I'll just trust in Him. And so at the stage where I could have worried, I started trusting. And then, within a couple of weeks, it shot up. Like I said, I had calls from past clients that I sold deals to.
Hmm.
Hey, Casey, I'm thinking about selling such and such property. What do you think it's worth? Can you underwrite it for me?
Hmm.
Let's take it to market. You know, I'd have other clients, Casey, I don't know if you remember me, you sold me this deal over here, or, you know, I bought this deal previously from you and I'm wanting to buy more. Do you have anything else in mind? Well, it just so happened a lot of times that the clients that were calling me about selling the clients that were calling me about buying,
Hmm.
I just put them together and made it work.
Nice. Nice.
God made it work.
That's pure wisdom. So what is the name of that your car? The one you carried me in.
Which one?
Oh, you have multiple?
I can't remember which one it
I
was I
think it
carried you
was
in.
either a Porsche or something. You got it,
Oh,
yeah, after selling your first 2 or 3 deals in multifamily. But
oh yeah, that was a Porsche Cayenne. I remember that. The turbo, yeah.
right, do you still have
The
it?
big SUV.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
I got rid of it last year. I actually put it almost 200,000 miles on it.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
And so,
So I've got this very interesting question to ask you, right? So
uh-huh.
there is this belief out there that Christians are supposed to live very very um poor life, because it is just like it's hard for a cattle to go through the needle's eye. It's very hard for rich people to enter into heaven.
Hmm.
And the Casey that I know, he's not a poor guy. Casey believes in having material wealth. How do help demystify that belief that
Yeah,
has been
I
in the
mean,
Christian space for quite some time now?
I think a lot of times we try to make basically the Bible meet our situations instead of our situations meeting the Bible
Mm,
of what it says. We try to portray, you know, basically Jesus as this persona of he's basically just like me when we're supposed to be like him and him not like us.
mm,
I believe in having wealth and I believe in having nice things. One thing I don't believe though is it having you.
mm,
See, when it has you, it has control over you.
mm.
But whenever you have control over it, you can manage it.
Yeah.
It talks a lot in the Bible about managing. If you remember, Jesus gave the 3 men the 3 talents.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one went and invested and made things happen with it, but then the other one would basically break even, and then you had the other one that didn't do anything with it. He just hoarded it. And so God gives us the ability to get wealth. He gives us the ability to live a prosperous life because I don't believe that God would want us to live in a poverty state of mind for the fact of when people look at us, we're supposed to be an example of Christ. We're supposed to be an example of God, of what he really represents and what he stands for.
Mm-hmm.
God doesn't stand for poverty. God doesn't stand for being broke. God doesn't stand for being brokenhearted. He stands for someone to be successful.
Mm.
He gives us the ability to do it. He gives you the choice if you want to go that direction or if you want to be where you are. But if you think about it, poverty is a curse. It's not really a blessing to be in poverty. What good is it to be under stress and under pressure all the time of trying to make ends meet?
Mm.
There's nothing good that comes from that.
Mm-hmm.
Someone that is not a Christian is going to look at your lifestyle and think, why would I follow them? I live a better life than they do.
Mm.
They they don't have a good marriage. They don't have, a good financial situation. I'm not going to follow Christ if that's the way it's supposed to live.
Mm.
God doesn't want us. God wants us to be a light and an image of something that someone wants to follow. Because that's the only way we're going to allow people to get into our life and want to be a Christian is by looking at the example of who we are.
Mm.
If it's not, it's never been, a thing where people will per se, oh, God wants you to live this average life. He wants you to be average. It's so funny because if you read your Bible, it sounds like when Jesus was born and the three wise men came to him, they brought him frankincense, myrrh,
Mm-hmm.
gold, all the precious oils
Right.
of an inheritance, is what it says. Sounds like to me that's not poverty. It sounds like to me that's not poor.
Sure.
It said that he held all 13 disciples in his house and still had room to go up to the upper room upstairs.
Mm.
Oh, come on now.
Mm-hmm.
That's not poverty. That's not poor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe it. I can't. You know, God wants us to be prosperous
Mm-hmm.
because that's how we're going to be able to convert people to be a Christian and want to follow God's way. The difference is to be wealthy, but not let the wealth have you. He doesn't want you to make an idol of it. That's why if you look at a lot of like wealthy people, and I'm saying, not just millionaires, but past that stage, they don't really care about material things. They don't care about, what they drive or how they dress or whatever. It doesn't matter to them. They don't really care. There's more important things in life than that. And that's the ability to be able to look at something and say, I have the ability to go get this and do this and help this many people, change this many lives. But if you don't have anything, can you really help? There's an old example. Say if you were at your family's house and your cousin wanted to basically go on a missions trip, and it cost a large sum of money. Nobody in the family had it. And with you being blessed, you were able to do it. What do you think you did for her life? You changed it.
Mm-hmm.
She's going on a missions trip to learn about God. But what if you didn't have anything and you were supposed to give to her?
Mm.
She's lost her opportunity to be able to meet Jesus in a way that she understands.
Mm-hmm.
God gives us the ability to get wealth, but he also gives us the ability to give it.
Sure.
And also, whenever you give, you get back more.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it says that. It has nothing to do with the ability to get it and hoard it,
Yeah.
but it says also that a good man leaves an inheritance to his kids.
Sure.
And it's not just talking about money, but it's talking about wisdom, knowledge. It's talking about property.
Yeah.
It's talking about all of it,
Yeah.
because that gives them the ability to succeed more and
Mm-hmm.
keep growing your name.
Yeah. No, that's great. I like how you demystified that, because we have to keep drumming this all over and all over again, that the
Right.
universe is filled with abundance, and God who created it, it's a God of abundance.
That's
I
right.
mean, look at the words that he speaks. He says, "Ask me of anything, and I'm gonna give it to you." Like that's
Yes.
like saying to somebody, this is a blank check. Just write whatever you want in it. A God who is limited in his thinking can never tell you to do that. You know.
No.
Yeah. So that's great. I want to go into financial independence. What
Uh-huh.
does financial independence mean to you, Casey?
Financial independence creates freedom. It creates your time to be able to use in a way that you're not limited. If you're strapped down to, a bunch of debt, or you're strapped down to a job that requires all your time, you're never going to have that freedom to be able to spend time with your family, your loved ones, or do anything. That's why it's so important to create that financial freedom of residual income, of a way where you're not going to be able to be strapped down and miss a family function because you can't
Hmm.
make the ends meet without it. That is being a slave. That's a modern day slave, if you
Yeah.
think about it.
Mm-hmm.
No one should be tied down to their job that much where they have to miss family events, missing their, son's birthday party, their daughter's birthday party, you know, family coming into town. Well, I can't be there. I got to work.
Hmm.
You don't want to be that way.
Yeah.
That's not a way to live.
Yeah. No,
We
that's
want to
great.
enjoy life.
I like that. I like that. So, Casey, what one or two business books you've read that really changed your life?
Man, there's so many business books that I've read. One but good book. It's a long one, but it's called The Millionaire's Mind.
Hmm.
It is a very good book. It kind of breaks down the way they think,
Mm-hmm.
the way they act, and it gives statistics on how they do it. So it's very knowledgeable. That is a good book to read. And then also another one is How to Buy and Sell Apartments. It's an older book.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I don't know if anyone can get it now or not, but I know it came out in like the late 80s, 90s. And it's a great book, especially to learn how to basically list apartments, buy apartments, and sell apartments. So
Mm-hmm.
it gives you the steps to be able to do that. Talks about how to, you know, start underwriting them, how to understand what a banker will ask for, all sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
A great book.
That's great. That's great. So we're coming close to a 1 hour mark here. So we're like 15 minutes. We have 15 minutes more. So I'm gonna open up the question and answer session, so people can
Okay.
mute themselves and ask Casey some questions. So Casey is a very good friend of mine. We went to the same real estate school when I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Some maybe 6 years, 7 years, 8 years ago, and we've kept in contact since then. So he has since moved from being a realtor to a broker, and he has done more than 100 million in real estate transactions. So If you have any questions, please do unmute yourself. Just put in the comment section so I can unmute you, and then you can ask your question. But while we are waiting for those answers, Casey, what is your advice for someone who perhaps they just got their first 2023 was the first year they made like six figures in income and they are super
Uh,
excited, what is your
yeah.
advice for someone like that who is looking forward to making 2024 a year that they are strategizing and start planning for their financial independence? What advice would you give to the person?
Well, it's all going to depend which direction they want to go. If they're wanting to, buy apartments, then they could start with a smaller complex and work their way up, or they could go into a syndication, kind of where there's more than one partner in the deal, where they can just put in capital, kind of be a limited partner, instead of being hands-on and having being part of everything. If they still have that job that weighs them down, they could also flip properties too.
Mm-hmm.
If they get a good team to be able to renovate, then they can do the renovations to the property, sell it, get their money, and go get another one. It's all going to depend which kind of direction they want to go. Like I said before, real estate has so many avenues where you can go, and you can always do more than one.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends where your heart is.
Yeah. Yeah. So somebody asked in the comment section, if you were to start real estate afresh, what would you do differently?
If I was going to restart it,
Yes. What would you do differently?
I would say whenever I first started, I probably should have, instead of being an agent so quick and just continuing to be an agent, maybe start investing at an earlier age. Because it's interesting how real estate investing works. People think that you buy something and then you're going to get a residual right away and you're going to get this substantial return. But real estate is a long game, it's not a short game. When you play it long, you'll always win. It's just the timing.
Mm.
And so, what I would have done differently is I would have accumulated and started buying more properties instead of waiting until I got older. Buying them young and saying, just buying us, one or two houses here and there. I mean, three houses, that pays for your mortgage, that pays for your car, that pays for your living expenses,
Mm.
all sorts of ways. And then not only that, say in 3 years, that market booms. The houses that you paid 100,000 for, they're now worth 150. Well, let's do the math of how much of the difference that is in just one house. You could refinance it or you could sell it and then you can go buy something bigger. It's just all about how you play it. It's almost like modern day Monopoly if you think of it.
Mm. That's good. That's good. Okay, somebody raised their hand. Okay, Dami. Let me
Yeah,
unmute. Okay, Dami, go ahead. Sorry.
thanks, John. Thanks, John. This has been a really great session. I really enjoyed every bit of it. Casey, your story is truly inspiring. Thank you for sharing it. My question is, so what markets are you in? I'm guessing Oklahoma is one of it, and are there any other markets that you're focused in at this point? And the other
Yeah,
question is, so my other question is, how do you, you being a man of faith and, real estate is a game of numbers. And, I've seen in my investing career, I've seen brokers just aggressively, estimate things and a unit, for example, cost of renovation, they tend to go a little bit, not totally estimate correctly, just to put it in a non-attacking way.
right.
So how do you manage that? And I'm sure you've seen scenarios where, you know that a certain project is going to cost maybe $10,000 or $12,000 per unit to renovate. And you have actually seen people Some brokers will say, hey, I mean, it's only going to cost you about $6,000 just because they're trying to sell. If
Yeah,
you're a broker, you've come across that scenario a million times, I'm sure.
many.
How do you stand steadfast and ensure, as a man of faith, that you are not tempted to do something like that just because you're trying to get a sale?
And the thing is, you have to be honest. It's so funny how it works because we try to label it as faith, but honestly, it's just better to be a good character and be honest. Whenever you tell one lie, you got to tell another lie to cover it up. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when that happens, we tell one lie and then we got to tell another one to cover it up. Next thing you know, we're just a big fat liar and we just lie all the time.
Mm.
And we get that reputation of always lying and not being honest. Eventually, your business will start to crumble. It's always better to be honest right out the gate rather than try to persuade somebody to buy something, because you want a long-term deal. You don't want something that's going to be short-term. You sell them something, you get out.
Mm.
You want something that they're going to want to come back and continue to want to do business with you.
Mm.
You want somebody that if you were honest with them from the beginning in the small things, think about all the people that they know that are in the business that you may not know of. And if you're honest, they're going to recommend you to other people. They're going to want to do business with you. They're going to want to do transactions with you because they know they can trust you. But if you lie to them, think about how fast that lie will spread around compared to being honest to somebody. And that's where you kind of got to separate the two. You can lie, get a couple of deals, or you can be honest and get multiple deals. And then God will bless you more because you're not cursed with lying and sin all over your deals. You're protected.
That's one thing. That's one thing that they teach us in real estate, that brokers, they will always inflate the value.
They always, yeah,
because they are
they
trying
pro forma.
they're trying to sell and all that. So, but yeah, I like how you put in the perspective of try to think long term. Because I've had scenarios where those people are going to be your repeat customers. They will keep coming back.
Yes.
You understand? So you want to build that relationship, and that includes being honest with them. So another question in here says, so this person is asking, perhaps with limited income, how can he get started in, commercial apartment investing? Perhaps, person makes like 40 to 60K in a year. How can the person start leveraging apartment investing as an investment vehicle?
I mentioned earlier that time is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at a lot of investors, that's one thing that they kind of struggle with sometimes is time. With you being young and maybe not having all the financials to be able to go and do it yourself, you could partner with somebody and say, hey, listen, I'll take on all the liability of this, of renovating these units and helping you get these to where we can get them to go. And I'll just take a small percentage. I'll put all the sweat equity in.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be one way for you to be able to start in that career.
That's great. So
sitting under a mentor that has the capability to be able to teach you,
mm-hmm.
but then also you have the ability to free him up time.
That's great. And that was exactly how I started, by investing with somebody, investing with a team, investing with syndicators. So Dami that just asked you a question, he's actually a syndicator, right? So he finds deal. Obviously, you know what syndication is. So for my audience, syndicators are people who go out there, find deals, and then raise money for that. That is what I do too. As a syndicator. So Dami has the other question that he asked you: what other markets are you in, apart from Oklahoma?
So I work basically the Midwest region. So anywhere in the Midwest, I've kind of done deals. Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, Georgia, just all up and down the Midwest. Is basically how I work.
Okay.
I brokered deals there. Mostly, if I'm investing, it's basically in my backyard. Unless it's a really good deal, then I'm happy to go outside the state. But other than that, that's kind of my sandbox.
I mean, within these states that you just mentioned, what are the landlord friendly states in the Midwest region?
I want to say Texas is one of them. Is that right? I believe so. Oklahoma. I believe Arkansas is, Missouri. Um, I think Georgia is too. I think in Florida, I think they are too, right? In some parts,
Yeah, yeah,
more of the panhandle part.
yeah.
I think it all kind of depends on the area.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's great. So somebody is asking how well this question. Casey is not gonna be able to answer this question because
What is it? I'll try
he's not in Nigeria. I think this person is
it.
asking about real estate in Nigeria.
That's a
Um,
good market. I know I actually have some friends that live out there and they invest out there in
what
Nigeria.
what kind of strategies are they using for?
They're mostly buying like Airbnbs, places like that, for tourists to come and stay. That's mostly what they're going
That's
after.
the only real estate land and Airbnbs are the only two real estate I can do in Nigeria right now. Because all this while I've been going to Nigeria, real estate, all the people have stayed in their apartments, they all
hmm
live like outside of Nigeria and they have someone in Nigeria managing their properties for them. So,
Right?
okay, well, Casey has an answer for you. Go get into Airbnb if you're in Nigeria and you're looking at getting into real estate. So, I mean, with real estate, location will change the strategy that you're using, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's what matters. I feel like for it to worth my time, at least I need to get a certain level of return, for me to go into any market, right? So
Right.
with Nigeria, I believe it is Airbnb and land. Those are the two real estate strategies that will work for me. So, do we have any more questions? I know we are 2 minutes to time here. Um, so, Casey, I'm going to ask you. Let me see. Okay, ask your question again. Okay. Bethel, I'll get with you on that. I'll get with you on that. So, Casey, I want to ask, how do people reach out to you? How do people connect with you? Obviously, you have a mentorship program that you
Yes.
have ongoing. How do people connect with you?
They can connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, just Casey Litsey. Send me a message, send me a request. That'd be one of the easiest ways. Also, you could email me, casey.litsey at multifamily group, GRP instead of the whole word spelled out,
Mm-hmm.
group.com. I'm sure you can share that information with them.
Yes, yes. I'll
So,
definitely send it across to me, and I'm gonna share it to my audience. So yeah, any final words for us, Casey? This is a faith and entrepreneurship session. You shared your powerful story of how you started. So Casey is a living testimony of I don't want to encourage this. I think you should go to school. But here, here is someone who believed so much in what he feels like God has laid in his heart, right? And he pursued it, even though he knew nothing about real estate. He went to school, failed 7 times. I didn't know that about you, Casey. You failed seven
yeah.
times, and then you
Uh-huh.
succeeded, and then you became a realtor, right? and
Yes.
and being a realtor, you move from there to becoming a broker and then into commercial. So thank you for sharing those powerful stories for us. Any final words for our audience today?
Man, go out and find your avenue of real estate in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Write down something that you want to do in 2024. It's really early in the year to be able to start planning, to be able to implement that. So then when you look back in December, going into 2025, you'll look back and say, man, I completed what I wanted to do in real estate, and it will be the best feeling.
Mm.
So I encourage you to find your avenue in real estate or where you're wanting to go. One of the best ways to do it is ask God first.
Mm.
Ask God the avenue of where you're supposed to go and how you're supposed to do it.
Mm.
And all the plans will start to work together. So go and make 2024 your best year yet. So I
Thank you.
appreciate it, man. I'm so glad to be on this conference with you and be able to talk with you and catch up
Thank you.
and share our knowledge in the business. And I know you're going to do great in 2024.
Thank you.
You're already on track
Thank you.
to do amazing things. And so
Thank you.
I
Appreciate it.
appreciate you for
Thank
having
you.
me on.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you, Casey.
Thank you.
I'm going to send out an email to everyone that joined, with your
Okay.
information, and hopefully somebody will reach out for some mentorship or some direction. But I appreciate you
Yeah.
guys. Thank you all for joining today. Thank you, everyone that devoted this last 1 hour to
Yeah.
me
And I'll
today.
let you on an inside scoop, man. I've been working on this for about a year,
Okay.
but I'm going to tell it to you just because you're here.
Okay.
I've been writing this book,
Huh.
How to Be Rich.
Nice.
Rich doesn't always mean money.
Mm. I will be
And
I'll be your first customer when you publish it.
yeah. Yeah. So it talks about being rich, in our faith, our health, our family, our finances,
Yeah.
everything.
That's great.
And so it's been in the works. So hopefully by this year I'll have it done.
All right.
It'll be my first book.
I'll be
So
on the waiting list to buy that. All right. Thank you, Casey, and thank you everyone that joined. This will be the end of our session today. We'll have another one next month. We have a medical doctor that will be coming to speak to us next month. So
oh wow.
I'm gonna send you guys an email when that time comes. But thank you all so much for joining, and blessings.